Free agency is slowing down, but that does not mean the Pacers are done. What else can they still do this offseason? What's on the docket for the rest of their summer? I'll break down all of it for you today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, y'all. Last day of July, and welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're wrapping up July by doing free agency talk, but not about the stuff we've been talking about all month. Instead, we're looking ahead at the stuff the Pacers can and will still have to do this offseason at some point. Veteran extensions, rookie skill options, filling out the training camp roster, all sorts of stuff to get to today because it's July. It's the month of transactions. I think I've covered everything that has happened in free agency for the Pacers, all their new guys, all their departing guys, all their guys still out there. So we'll do this, and then we'll bury transactional stuff until something actually happens, unless I get a lot of questions about a specific thing. So we'll get to a lot of stuff today, and thanks for being here. This is the only indie sports podcast today. Probably not talking about Jonathan Taylor at all. So congrats to you for tuning into your daily dose of Indiana Pacers, where there'll be no back injuries or franchise tags or owners talking about those things. Let's instead look ahead at the Pacers off-season moves. And I'll start with the big one and the one that encompasses the most stuff. And this is not something they'll have to do, but something the Pacers will certainly consider for the rest of the summer is contract extensions. And specifically to start, veteran extensions. They have 3 players eligible for veteran extensions. 2 of them, I would say there's about a 1 or less % chance of them happening. And 1 player has a decent argument for it happening. And we'll talk about all the mechanics of all this. So the 3 players eligible for veteran extensions at some point this offseason are Buddy Hield, TJ McConnell, and Daniel Tice. In fact, I did a whole episode on contract extensions much earlier in the offseason. But as the dynamics change of a team, they sign new players, their cap situation's different, they have Tyrese Haliburton locked up for several years, so does the situation of contract extensions. And so looking at these players, here's the thing with TJ McConnell's contract, right? And he is not extension eligible the day the season starts. He's only extension eligible until opening night. Like, what if Nembhard's now going to move into the backup 1 because Bruce Brown's on the wing, Ben Shepherd's in the fold, right? They've changed the dynamics of their wing rotation. Then you definitely won't have TJ McConnell for that much longer, at least at his current money. If he's willing to take a minimum to be a veteran guy 2 years from now, sure, but he's not going to extend at that number right now. That would not be smart for him. He, starting in 2 seasons from now, would be eligible for an extension that starts at $13 million, up to $13 million. Does not have to remember, when I say the number, it's up to that. It could start as low as the minimum. It could start as high as $13 million. And if it starts at $13 million, his max extension is 4 years added at $58 million. That would start 2 years from now. That's actually 3 years, $45 million. 3 years, $42 million. He could not add 4 years. So he's not worth that much, right? There is an amount that makes sense for TJ McConnell, but I think with the additions on the wing, moving the positions around, it's not something that the Pacers or McConnell would pursue at this time. And typically, extensions just don't happen for guys with 2 years left on their deal, unless it's an obvious max guy where the value of the extension is not going to change. And for McConnell, it certainly could, right? It definitely could. I mean, who knows what's up with his contract next year, which is only partially guaranteed. Just doesn't seem like something the Pacers would pursue. Another guy, extension eligible this summer, Daniel Tice. Same deal as McConnell as of right now. Once the season starts, he is not extension eligible unless the Pacers decline his team option. Same kind of deal, up to $12.7 million. No chance that happens. Could go as low as the minimum. Daniel Tice not getting extended. I mean, there's a million reasons we could talk about why. The Pacers have a bunch of backup centers. They don't need another one. There's a million available backup centers if a team actually needs one. Maybe he plays well for the team this year and they just keep him next year anyway because they have team control. There's really no point in pursuing this for either side, honestly. I don't think I need to dive into that too much. There's no mechanics that make sense there. The player that has a greater than 1% chance of actually having a contract extension, and that is worth discussing, and maybe we'll get into this more as the offseason progresses, is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is extension eligible not only during the rest of the offseason, but even into the regular season, because he's in the final year of his deal, right? Similar to how Miles Turner was eligible for a contract extension during last season, Buddy Hield currently eligible for a contract extension and will be into the regular season, which is vital for the Pacers because Kevin Pritchard's quote specifically when asked about a Buddy Hield extension was, let me find the right part. I think we've got to define his role next year, and if we can get a role where he's comfortable and we're comfortable, then I'm not opposed to it and it being an extension. So they clearly have to figure out exactly how they feel about Hield going forward in the new context of their team. Similar to McConnell, his role might change, right? He might come off the bench. I predicted so during the rotation episodes with Eddie Garrison last week. So if he does, how much is he playing? Is that enough? Is that not enough? Is he okay with that being his role? What does that look like long term? Lots of questions about that sort of thing because he's eligible for an extension. And with the Pacers specifically, he's been probably worth his deal. I thought he was a negative value contract prior to coming to the Pacers. I think now he's probably about an even value deal. At best, his defense is still lacking to the point that it's definitely not a positive value deal. But, 18 million, 19 million, a little bit under, about solid starter money, a little under that now in the new cap climate. It makes sense to me that he's at that number, but he's in his 30s, right? So that's not like it's going to drastically go up. He pairs very well with Halliburton. 3-point shooting is mega valuable. He's super durable, which the Pacers learned from their old era is very important. He brings a lot of positives to the Pacers despite also having his negatives. So I think he's fairly paid now. So the way extensions work again is now you can get a 140% salary increase from your prior year salary in the first year of an extension. Using those rules, Buddy Hield's max extension would be 4 years, 116.5 million. That could go again as low as the minimum and as low as 1 year added, just setting the full parameters. I don't think Buddy Hield's worth 4 for 116.5. I think Buddy Hield's worth probably closer to I don't really know if they added a year, 15 million on a 1 year or I don't know, 2 for 30. These are made up numbers in my head. I'm trying to think. Not many shooters had summers that just happened. But that makes more sense to me, given what his contributions are and what his role could be, right? Especially if Bruce Brown's still around. But Nemhard's going to be there. Batherin's going to be there. Who knows what the wing situation looks like for the Pacers. But, if minutes aren't there for Hield anyway, it's hard to imagine wanting to pay him starter money if he's not a starter. So his extension is interesting because there are parameters that make sense, but they all kind of require him getting paid the same amount or less. And that's sort of rare in extensions unless, dear friend, they do what they did with Miles Turner and do one of those renegotiation extensions where the first year gets bloated and the next couple of years are much lower because they can drop by as much as 40%. McConnell and Tice technically eligible for this too, although with 2 years left, I don't think that I've ever seen that happen in the NBA. So what could happen, for example, is if the Pacers use all the rest of their cap space on Buddy Hield's contract, they could bump his salary up to $26 million in the coming season and then drop it all the way down as far as $15.5 million the year after that. In theory, what you've done in there is a 1 year, $22 million extension, and then you have Buddy Hield on a cheapo contract the next year. Or if they did that with the same structure they did for Miles Turner, it would be a 2-year extension where Buddy Hield gets just under 40 million of added money, but in total for the Pacers, his cap hits in the new years are 31 million. That's fairly tradable. That makes sense to me. If they did that for as long as possible, that would be an extension in total value, including the coming season, of 96.1 million. We have to subtract out what he already makes because it's a renegotiation. And really, it's 4 years added at 77 million. So maybe that makes sense. If they do want to do an extension with Hield, maybe the big salary drop is the way to make it make sense for them this year, where they use their cap space productively. They get Hield at a number that makes more sense for a player who has a question mark role for the team going forward. I don't know. Maybe they don't extend him at all. Like Pritchard said, his role could change. Who knows how that changes team dynamics in any way, whether that's the play of every player or how they feel about his value if he's in a different role or anything like that. But they're going to have to figure out his future this season at some point anyway. So if they can find a deal that makes sense, maybe that does make sense. And they can do that renegotiation extension also carried into the season because he's extension eligible. So that might have been a new CBA change, actually. Don't hold me to that. Either way, those 3 guys are veteran extension eligible this summer. McConnell and Tice, I mean, I would basically just say that's not happening. Buddy Hield, maybe. There are some machinations that make sense for that, but I don't know that it's something that either side will be rushing to do, especially because the Pacers could use that space during the season for something else. But they do have the room exception at about the same value as their cap space. It's not like their cap space is so mega valuable at the amount it is. There are reasons to think about using it in a renegotiation. Let's talk about some other types of extensions and stuff that I think are important rookie scale extensions in our next segment. Before we get to that, though, I want to really quickly talk to you guys about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel, and you'll get 10 times your first bet in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll earn $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over/under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. That's pretty fast. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, I don't think I've said this show all summer because this team has not had the most wow offseason, but they made the most recent signing I could think of. How about Locked On Bucks? They ran it back a little bit. They just re-signed Giannis's brother. Again, their new additions are Malik Beasley, and I'm missing one. But hey, the Bucks should be still very good next year. And Locked On Bucks should be your second listen. Also, another Central Division team to get the down low on a team the Pacers will play 4 times this year. Let's keep going, talking about the rest of the Pacers offseason stuff they can still do. If you remember, back when I talked about contract extensions the first time this summer before free agency, when I talked about rookie extensions, the only 2 guys were Tyrese Halliburton, and that ended up happening, and Aaron Nesmith. But now Obi Toppin is also on the Pacers, so he is also in this mix. So I want to talk about that whole setup, what it looks like for those guys, and if it makes any sense for this to actually happen. Obviously, for Halliburton, it made sense. He's going to be a max player next year, no matter. I mean, he could have had an 18-9 year and probably gotten a max contract next year, and that's probably not going to happen. And if it does happen, that means he's better at several other things. So it made sense to do it. Now, rookie extensions are really tricky. They're really, really hard because they don't start for a year, and they're for players who have only been in the league for about 3 years. So you're kind of estimating value, and 3 years is not a huge sample, so one good season can kind of skew things. And there's a couple other things at play. You're betting that what that player's value will be over the full contract. But if they have a bad 4th year, they could look like an overpay very quickly. If they have a great 4th year, it could look like an underpay. But the player feels the same way, right? If it's a non-max extension and you come to the table, this happened with Sabonis. You heard his comments on the record when the Pacers came to him with, I don't know what offer. And he said, now I know how the team feels about me and blah, blah, blah. And he ended up agreeing on whatever it was, 4 for 85, I think was what the number came in at the time. And he felt slighted by whatever their first offer was, and then ended up working out totally fine. And there was no harm, no foul. The exact number for him, by the way, was 4 for 75. Excuse me, I was off by a little bit there, with some incentives that took it over 80. Either way, those can get tricky for the non-max guys. Sabonis probably thought he was going to play above that value, right? And he wanted more. The Pacers said, well, we want to see it, and we're paying for the player you're going to be, not the one you think you're going to be. And it ended up working out for both sides. But, it's a tricky negotiation. That's why for max players, these are tough. But there's another side of it that isn't discussed as much to me, and that's the bottom side of these things. And, if you're an okay young player, a lot of teams put a lot of value on that youth, as they should. Young players getting better is a good way to get players on a valued contract. And so it's very rare for rookie scale extensions to come in at a number significantly less than the mid-level exception, right? And this will be relevant to both Aaron Nesmith and Obi Toppin, because even if you're like, let's talk about PJ Washington right now. He's still a restricted free agent from Charlotte. They have not agreed on a new deal. If he probably thought last summer, at worst, he could get 4 years at the mid-level exception and get 4 for 50, and he's worth well over that. And who knows if he'll get that now in his current state of restricted free agency, but he's young and good. He could get that much money. So last summer, if he was offered 4 for 50, he'd say, heck no, I can get that from anybody next summer who has the full mid-level exception. That's kind of like a benchmark for capable young talent to think about. I don't know if this has ever been really articulated or said by a team, but in my head, if I'm an agent too, I'm thinking that way. Like if my guy plays decent to good this year, I'm coming off a rookie skill deal. I was a first round pick and I'm good. Like, yeah, I think I should get mid-level exception money. So it's very rare to see rookie skill extensions come in at less than that. Now, this trend got smashed last year when Nasir Little signed his 4-year, $28 million rookie skill extension with Portland. I could not believe that happened. Fully guaranteed, no options, no silliness. That's a great deal for the Blazers. And so it does happen. So here's the deal to say all that. Do you think, listener, Aaron Nesmith is a $12 to $15 million player? I would say right now, probably not. In fact, Nasir Little, he's better than Nasir Little, but Nasir Little's first year salary in his rookie skill extension is $6.25 million. Aaron Nesmith's better than him, but that's significantly far away from the $12 million number I just said. And so, while Nesmith is good, I don't quite think there's a route to a veteran extension here because he probably thinks that if you're Aaron Nesmith, you probably think if I have another decent to good year where I hit league average from 3 and I'm a good defender for the Pacers, they're going to need me at least 4 for 40, like at a floor. And if I have a great year, I'm going to get way more than that. So why not just play out the year and see what you can get in restricted free agency? And if I'm the Pacers, I'm not offering more than $10 million a year. I might not even go that high. I mean, looking at this summer, your $10 million a year signee types are, players that like PJ Tucker was getting that last summer. Like he's better than Aaron Nesmith, certainly at a similar position, right? Like it's really hard to come up with perfect value. Landry Shamet got $10 million a year 2 years ago. I bet Aaron Nesmith thinks he's better than him. So like there's a lot of range here, like a Royce O'Neal type. Do teams value Aaron Nesmith more or less than him? I don't know that, but Aaron Nesmith is younger than Royce O'Neal, so he definitely has upside value in a way that Royce O'Neal didn't when he signed his deal at just under $10 million a year. I've just rambled a lot of thoughts at you to say, here's the thing. If you think Aaron Nesmith right this second is a player worth more than the mid-level exception, then there's a chance that a rookie scale extension for the Pacers and Nesmith gets done. And if so, it would be something like 4 for 60, 4 for 70. I don't think he's a starter level player. So if it gets up to 4 for 80 and we're talking 20 mil a year, I would consider that quite the overpay. 4 for 60, where he's like a decently paid backup and he can play his defense. That still seems a little high to me, but I would understand that, especially if he can be a 3-and-D wing. 4 for 50, that seems closer. 4 for 40 seems like what I would be offering if I'm the Pacers, but that feels low. Also, it can go up to 5 years. It can go up to max salary. Obviously, he's not a max player, just to set the parameters. So to me, a Nesmith rookie skill extension doesn't happen, even though I think it makes sense for him to be with the Pacers beyond this coming season. It's just, if you're Nesmith, you'd probably rather play out the year and see if you can shoot 40% from 3 and all of a sudden be getting a ton of money in free agency, or just play amazing defense and be a part of closing lineups. These are all somewhat realistic paths for him to get paid more. And the thing is, if you're the Pacers, you're probably like, you know what? If Aaron Nesmith shoots 40% from 3, great, we'll pay him. So there is risk, obviously, that, if you offer 4 for 50 and he doesn't take it and then he's amazing and then he's worth more than that, yeah, you lost a chance to get him for less if you had pushed for 4 for 60. But there's also the risk of you offer 4 for 60 this summer and then he's just, 33% from 3 and his defense doesn't get that much better. And then he's probably a little overpaid at $15 million a year. So that's the delicate balance of this stuff. And I think 4 for 40 makes the most sense. That's less than mid-level exception value, and that's pretty rare. So that was a long rant to say that's the Aaron Nesmith discussion the Pacers will think about, and I don't really know if anything gets done there. Obi Toppin, same kind of deal, except a step back a little bit where he hasn't shown as much as Nesmith in his career, and the Pacers have seen none of him, right, in their culture, in their system. So that's a bigger risk for them. And I feel like they would be a lot farther apart just because Toppin has 3 years of himself playing and evaluating himself and what he'd be good at. And the Pacers have no idea how he fits in their system. So even if he's a perfect fit and he has an awesome season and he does all these great things, guess what? The Pacers should go, great. We got our power forward of the future for nothing. We'll pay you now. But right now, I don't see what that value would look like given the career Obi Toppin has had and the value typically that rookie scale extensions kind of have a floor of. Nasir Little ruined my analogy for this last summer But in general, I feel like Neesmith and Toppin, there's a chance they're both on the Pacers beyond this coming season. If they have good years, I think the Pacers would be happy to pay them. They're a young emerging team, but it's hard to figure out what the players and teams would agree that makes sense, that wouldn't just be a totally bad contract for one side in a year in a way that someone would decline it. So to me, there's a lot of intrigue to me about these rookie scale extensions because I could see how either of them would happen, but I don't expect either of them to happen given those player situations with the Pacers, especially for Obi. It's like if he has a decent year but not a great year, is he even a starter anymore? Could Jarris Walker just be the starter? And in that case, you might not want to invest as much resources. If you're Aaron Neesmith, same deal. The wing's a little clogged up. If the Pacers turn some stuff around, you might not be in the rotation at all. Then you're losing money and chances. So there's just a lot of dynamics at play here that make me think nothing will happen, even though both players could get a rookie scale extension. I probably should have talked more mechanics here. Both players are under contract for the coming season, and so this extension would start in 2024-25 for both guys. And they both have pretty high cap holds next summer, so there is some value in the Pacers of getting them under that value in first year of some rookie scale extensions, just so they get some cap space next summer. But that's the gist of those two types of extensions. I don't foresee either of them happening, even though, unlike McConnell and Tice extensions, where there's just, I would be stunned. At least these, if they happen, I go, okay, I get it. I get why this was able to be negotiated. I just think that from a value perspective, it will be very hard for the parties to come to terms, not because there's nothing that makes sense, but just, or not because they hate each other, like there's no relationship that makes sense, but just because there's no like actual basketball financial incentive to really jumping early for either side. Both sides will think that they can do better potentially by waiting a year and having a harder deadline, working down their breath. That was not a sentence that made any sense. Breathing right behind them, whatever. Let's wrap this up. A couple more things I want to get to. Exhibit 10 deals, rookie options. That one's pretty easy. And just general what the Pacers could still do this summer to close out today's show. Thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. A quick look at the NBA transaction log says the second most recent signing, besides Thanasis Antetokounmpo, like we talked about at the end of the first segment, is Jared Butler signing a two-way with the Wizards. So hop on over to Locked On Wizards to get the latest on Washington's basketball team that looks way different from last year. It's been fun for me to follow what the Wizards have done all summer. Check out Locked On Wizards for more on the Washington Wizards. Let's carry on here with the final segment. A couple more things I want to get to today. First up on the what the Pacers could still do this summer list is rookie scale team options. In fact, this one they probably will do this summer. They have a deadline of October 31st for these decisions. Last year, they did them on about October 10th, I think, October 12th-ish, in that range, before the season actually started. Rookie scale team options. If you remember, if you've listened to the show before, if you understand rookie scale contracts, they are 4-year deals, but the first 2 years are guaranteed and the last 2 years are team options. And you pick up the team options a full year in advance. So before a player's second season, you think about their third-year team option. Before a third season, you think about their fourth-year team option. So there's only, amazingly, given how much youth is on the Pacers, they only have 2 rookie scale option decisions they actually have to make this summer. Some of their other guys on rookie scale deals, like Ben Shepherd and Jarris Walker, their decision's not till next year. There is no decision on Jalen Smith because his contract has changed since he was drafted, since he had his option declined and then was traded. Jordan Nwora is not on a rookie scale deal. Obi Toppin and Aaron Neesmith are on rookie scale deals, but they're in the final year, so there's nothing there. So the only 2 players on the Pacers roster who have team options on rookie scale deals for 2024-25 are Benedict Mathurin and Isaiah Jackson. They're different ones. Benedict Mathurin is his 3rd year rookie scale team option for $7.3 million. That's an absolute no-brainer. Pacers could do it tomorrow. He could get hurt and miss the whole year. He'd still be worth that much given just where he was drafted. So, yeah, they're going to pick that one up. No discussion to be had. I think if you think Ben Mathurin should not be capped at $7.3 million, you're off base on the cap there. And then the other one's Isaiah Jackson, and this one's a little more interesting. Isaiah Jackson is owed $4.4 million from his rookie scale deal in 2024-25. So this one, and always has been with these players, that you have to think about it. It's all about opportunity cost, right? The Pacers picked up one of TJ Leaf's options for this exact reason, right? Even if they weren't the highest on Leaf anymore heading into his 4th year, they were over the cap. there was nothing. It was either TJ Leaf or a minimum player. So would you rather invest in a guy you drafted at a kind of small number, or would you rather have slightly different but worse resources? They chose TJ Leaf, and then they had to salary dump him because of the pandemic. But still, that was a justifiable decision at the time, even though he hadn't played very well for the team. Isaiah Jackson has done some good stuff, but is on a team that has a lot of other backup centers and has potential cap space aspirations next year. So here's what I would say. You can probably get someone who's given you about the same production as Isaiah Jackson for the same price. But Isaiah Jackson has more potential, one. And two, the opportunity cost element of this is, what is a better use of your free agency funds than a guy you already know within your system who has crazy athletic tools at 4.4 million? That's such a low number that even though Jackson has been bouncing around in and out of the rotation, and those are the guys you at least think about their fourth year for, it's not so much money that it's a big deal. And Tice could in theory not be on the team next year with that team option. Smith could in theory not be on the team next year with that player option. Like, to me, and I don't know if they could find a better use of $4.5 million of space than Isaiah Jackson. I think they should pick this up. I think that makes the most sense, even though he hasn't been like the most amazing player and still has some warts on the team, on his skill set. Like, you don't find players who can credibly guard as many positions as him and just give up on them, even if they have some jumpy problems and don't have a ton of skills away from the rim. So I think this is an easy one. Pick it up, ride out the 4 years, see what you want to do after that. But why not keep developing with him and figure out your center position in the next couple of years? Because there's low key a lot of flux there all of a sudden. If they decline his option, they could be looking at Miles Turner and nobody at the center spot next year, depending on how some other stuff goes. So I think picking that up makes the most sense by quite a bit, actually. But I at least understand. I would understand if it didn't happen. That's all I can ask for. But I think in this case, both rookie scale options will be picked up. So to summarize the stuff we've talked about so far, veteran extensions, McConnell and Tice seem exceedingly unlikely. Hield seems possible, but I would say below 50%. Rookie scale extensions, Neesmith and Toppin both eligible. I guess there's reason for both of them to have it happen, but I don't think it will happen for either guy. And rookie scale option decisions, I think both Mathurin and Jackson get their options picked up. The Mathurin one, I mean, I can't even believe I have to discuss it at all. So it's not the last couple things I want to mention today on the looking at the rest of the Pacers offseason stuff is, one, Exhibit 10s. This is not the most thrilling discussion of all time, but the Pacers have 15 guys on standard deals and 3 guys on two-way deals. In the regular season, that's the max for both of those spots, which is why everybody's talking about free agency being done, if I put air quotes up. But you can carry 21 guys in a training camp now under the new CBA. That number used to be 20. So in theory, the Pacers could sign 3 players to contracts, non-guaranteed contracts or anything of the sorts. Typically at this point in the summer, those are called Exhibit 10 contracts. What that means is the contract has an Exhibit 10 clause that states that if a player's cut from a team, they can go play for that team's G League affiliate. And if they're there for 60 days, they get a bonus of up to $75,000 as negotiated in the contract. Last year, the Pacers had 1 billion guys on Exhibit 10s. Gabe York, Justin Anderson, Davidas Servides, Benny Boatwright, David Stockton, Norvell Pell, Jermaine Samuels, Eli Brooks, and Tevin Brown all signed Exhibit 10s with the Pacers last year. I mean, it's just, if you like a guy and you want him in your organization, just do it, right? Just keep him in for, usually it's just a training camp deal. In fact, almost always it is. But why not? Why not? It's such a small potential resource. It's a nice bonus for those guys. And you have them on your G League team if they actually report. Like, using them is smart. Filling up your camp roster is smart so you can evaluate as many guys as possible. I don't know when the Pacers will sign Exhibit 10 guys. Last year, they signed Davidas Servides. He was the first one they signed on August 18th, right? So it could be in the middle of the coming month. It could be in September like last year for almost all the other Exhibit 10 guys. Who knows? But that's more Mad Ants related than Pacers related. What I will say is keep an eye on random little Mad Ants trades, right? If they traded for Servides last summer and then signed him to the Exhibit 10 deal right after that. I think they did that with Norvell Pell as well. Like, if you see the Mad Ants make some random trade in August, think, why did they trade for that guy? Because there's a chance he's getting a Pacers camp deal or an Exhibit 10 deal coming right up. That's another thing the Pacers can do. And the last thing I would really say, the only thing I wanted to add from my notes is, this is something that's unique about the Pacers situation, is they have the room exception still left. It's a salary cap exemption for teams who are under the salary cap to use. It's called the room exception. It's worth about $7.5 million in the first year, and it can be used to sign a player to a contract up to 3 years in length. Pacers have about that much in salary cap space anyway, so they should use the space first. There's advantages to keeping your room exception into the season with buyouts and proration and stuff like that. But that's something else they could do this summer is if they use their space, they could then use that for a signing at some point. So I thought that was pretty noteworthy and something I have not talked about much just because of how the summer's gone. So there we go. That's stuff that you can expect to be the talking points the rest of the summer and the Cliff Notes version. If you want, if by request, I suppose I can do specific shows or segments on any of these topics. If anyone wants a real deep dive on any of them. If not, we trudge out of free agency tomorrow. We'll do a game called What Are the Odds? I've wanted to do this for a while. They do it on Dunked On, and I think it's very funny. And we'll do that with Jimmy Cook. Wednesday, we'll fondly remember one of my favorite Pacers games ever because we'll be on the 3rd anniversary of it. And then Thursday, Friday is a mailbag. And then next week, we're down to 3 days a week. So lots of stuff coming, but lots of more specific stuff coming that I've wanted to do for a while. Should be really fun. Thank you all a ton for listening. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. The show's on YouTube, so comment down below if you think I said something dumb, or tweet at me, Z at me, whatever it's called. I'm on there at Tony R. East. Thank you all a ton for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.